Disclaimer, this isn't a hate video, but some car guys overhype these mods like the next coming of Christ. So like I said, if they're gonna keep swinging the pendulum further and further, eventually it's gotta come back. So boy oh boy are we clapping back. Burble tunes. I've already made enough videos ragging on straight pipes, so let's go after a different crowd this time. I get it, you want some pops, bangs, backfires, get some good crackling going, but just like with all good things in life, there always exists a point of excess. People talk about burble tunes like it's gonna help them get laid, make them super famous, and fix their father's growing disappointment in them. Bro, if I wanted the same sound as a burble tune, I could just go to Taco Bell and wait 3 hours later. Except it's not going to cost me $400 in tuning fees and thousands in engine damage later on. But instead, I have to deal with these mofos at 3 AM. I'm trying to sleep and some dude in their 3 Series or Infinity is going to blast by the interstate, popping everyone's eardrums out. Even worse, they might even start a gang war. I wish that was an unrelated joke, but I actually had an acquaintance who had that exact experience in his Beamer in ATL. He drove through the wrong neighborhood and sent through the wrong signals to the wrong people in the wrong place, so he caught some strays and had to go to the hospital. When me and a few friends went to go visit him, his Beamer still had the bullet holes in the door and everything. And yes, I know actual gunshots make whiffing sounds overhead, but again, in the heat of the moment when people just hear rapid bangs, like I said, it's just trouble waiting to happen. But me being overly concerned about your life aside, truth be told, I just think it's overrated in the sense that it doesn't even make more horsepower than literally any normal performance tune. And these also damage your engine. And again, they make less horsepower. And come on, isn't that what car guys care about? I mean, that's like the #1 car guy sin, giving up horsepower to just be a clout boy. Manual transmission. This one isn't really a mod, it's more of a choice that you do before buying the car. Technically it could be a mod because you could swap a manual transmission into a car, so therefore in that sense we're gonna include it in this video. For as long as I can remember, anyone who considered themselves a car guy swore by stick shift being the most engaging way to experience the road. These people probably have never ever touched a motorcycle, but nonetheless they want to talk about how amazing manual was and how lame automatics are. However, as time passed and blah blah blah, who am I kidding, I'm not gonna give you a whole lesson about it. The real reason manuals are finally being dethroned by most people in the car community now, by the fact that automatics are just way faster. For racetracks, for race cars, and for drag racing, and basically for almost everything. It's come to a point where people who care about speed, efficiency, end up wanting to choose. Because like, again, car guys love specs, data, statistics, and numbers, and you can't fault them for it. That is what sells cars these days. People who gravitate towards those performance figures are going to gravitate towards owning automatics now. Now, of course, manuals are still fun, they still have engagement. I'd rather still ride a manual motorcycle, but the point that most of them still like to make is that their manuals are still going to be the more enjoyable experience. And I'm not gonna lie, if you're someone who doesn't care about fractions of a second of a difference, all in the right for having that mindset, because at the end of the day, no one can stop you or force you to buy the other transmission, and that goes both ways. While manuals may have lost two of their greatest advantages, being shifting faster as well as being more fuel efficient, because automatics obviously now shift way faster thanks to super advanced computers, as well as that also resulting in better fuel economy. Manuals are still lighter, and more importantly, they're still more reliable because they have less parts within them, therefore they're cheaper to maintain. It's also easier to just find a whole bunch of old parts in the junkyard from older cars of the same make and model. People have always gravitated towards things that are easier, faster, and overall more convenient. That doesn't necessarily make people lazy, that's just the advancement of technology, and that's just how competition works. Don't lie, look at your cell phone right now. Is it a 1990 cell phone that's larger than your head that has hardly any functionality with like 2 buttons on it, or are you holding a smartphone? And again, before someone in the comments starts waving their stick at the sky and going, "You're one of those unmanly soy boys who drives an automatic," I ride a manual transmission motorcycle literally every single day. Most motorcyclists never brag about how manly we are for using our manual transmissions because we're not insecure man-children who make a shift knob our entire personality. By the way, to all Europeans, Indians, Japanese, and really the rest of the world watching, y'all are awesome. Dear American manual elitists, literally everyone else in the world uses manual transmissions. There's probably some 80-year-old grandma in India who's banging through gears through Delhi traffic as she dodges 100 pedestrians, 50 Royal Enfields, and 10 other cars. So to reiterate, real men don't have to brag about how manly we are or how manly our hobbies make us, because you should just like cars for liking cars and should like motorcycles for loving the ride, manual or otherwise. monoblock forged wheels, or multi-piece wheels. These are two technically different mods, but they're both wheels, so we're gonna put them in the same entry. These are both still cool, and from here on out, this video is gonna take a less harsh tone because these mods aren't something I have a huge problem with, but I still think they're extremely overhyped and overrated. Wheel elitism is something I've already covered a few times in the past, and I always hold the same sentiment. As long as you have a mid-tier brand that isn't a rep, I really don't care. OEMs are fine too. You don't even need aftermarket wheels if you don't want them. And truth be told, even cast wheels are fine if you're on a starter car or if you're on a slower car, and you really don't need to waste money until you get a faster car if you even want flow formed or rotary forged. Most people who actually track drift or build their race cars have echoed this sentiment. Flow formed is enough for 90% of scenarios. Whether it's 700, 800, or even north of 1,000 horsepower, there's some people who are still using rotary forged or flow formed wheels. And for 2 to 3 grand a set, why not, you know? I'm not gonna stop you from spending over 7 grand on monoblock wheels or 14 grand on a multi-piece set that's probably worth more than the car that it's being put on, because at the end of the day, it's your car, your choice, and your money. But just know that all the hype that you guys make about them won't rub off on the rest of the general public. We really couldn't care less about spending that much on wheels. It's kind of the same with headphones and shoes. It's kind of like how sneakerheads and audiophiles are. Like, look, as someone who skated and rode dirt bikes growing up, I scraped heel going to class each day on a bike or on a skateboard. I couldn't give a modicum of a scrotum over what shoes I wore, since to me, none of them really made it much longer than a year or two. Anyone who works construction or really any trade, or also people who are in the military, most of you guys also probably see shoes as a wear item. It's nice to have strong, durable boots, but I'm not getting super attached to them. In a sense, it was kind of liberating watching Whistling Diesel just annihilate a pair of overpriced shoes, than watching all the sneakerheads cry in the comments, because, bro, I don't care about collector value or rarity. It was probably made in the same sweatshop that all the other shoes were made in. Wait, what was I talking about again? Alright, monoblock forged wheels. Yeah, these are still cool. I definitely still see the appeal of them, but just like with shoes, I don't find myself ever going out of my way to get them. But if you want them, you do you, and I've talked about them way too much on this channel, so we're gonna move on. Paint protection film. PPF isn't a bad mod at all. If you're not familiar with what it basically is like self-healing wrap. It's like a film that goes over your paint, and if you scratch it a bit, it will actually just molecularly rearrange itself to the position it was originally installed in. But here's the thing, it only lasts 3 to 5 years, maybe 7, depending on weather conditions or how you store your car, but it is for sure overhyped and straight up unnecessary for most people from a value standpoint. I've already talked about in the past, but there are some people who are delusional where they say, get PPF for your car because it increases the value. For a supercar, yes, but for any other car, it does not increase the value relative to the amount spent. And at the end of the day, my paint job isn't super rare or unique. You can literally go to a Chevy dealer and order Corvette Racing Yellow, whereas I can understand why for some hypercars or supercars they might have a limited production paint. Therefore, they have more incentive to protect them, and also, like I mentioned, it's just more sense of value-wise, because for my car, PPF is like 10 to 20% the whole price of the car for something that's only gonna last 3 to 5 years, and that's kind of weird to spend that much on what is essentially a wear item. That's actually like worse than tires. Like tires for my car almost cost 2 grand, so it's kind of weird. And they last about the same. You know, a set of tires lasts me about 3 to 5 years as well, depending on how much I intend to drive the Z06 going forward. So again, this is just something that scales better with supercars, because getting rock chips and damaging 14 grand worth of paint jobs on a 500 grand car, yeah, that's not fun. I get why they'd want PPF. I think it looks great on Jack Ultramoto's new Lambo. You gotta keep the Mercy fly. It looks nice, bro. Look at that shine. I'm proud of you, bro. And if I had the opportunity to be in the same position, I'd probably do it too. But for now, haha, rock chips go brr. The final entry is probably going to show my age, as most people have already forgotten these ever existed, or never even heard of them until me mentioning them this video. Xenon headlights. I used to hear about these all the time from the late 90s to mid 2000s. Back then, a lot more cars still used halogen headlights. Most TV commercials, magazines, and car shops would try to peddle people who have halogens to instead upgrade to a xenon headlight. And to this day, I still have zero idea how good xenons actually were. There are still so many articles and so-called studies that have concluded they were never any brighter than halogens, just bluer. Some swear by xenon headlights like as if the experience was akin to getting their third eye opened while Moist Critical himself came down and jerked them off. Silliness aside, the widespread use of LEDs has made xenons all but forgotten by most within the car community. Funnily enough, halogens are actually still hanging around, both on motorcycles and on cars. The very thing that xenons tried so hard to replace are somehow still actually sticking around. By the time you are going to put money into modifying a headlight, like if by chance you still do have a halogen, there are a lot of LEDs to choose from these days, and they're just brighter, cheaper, and have significantly longer lifespans than xenons do. Again, I do find some niche articles that still swear by xenons being brighter than LEDs and even outliving them, but funnily enough, I also find a lot of counter articles, probably if not more, that state the other, where they're like, no, some studies have cited that LEDs have more lumens, and LEDs actually last longer. And since most cars actually just come with LED headlights these days, which are way brighter than halogens and way more reliable, easier to replace, and just last longer, even if there is the off chance that a xenon might still beat it, for how good LEDs perform, and for the fact that they cost you a low price of literally free, it still doesn't quite make sense for the general public. Therefore, I can see why it drifted into obscurity, because back in the halogen days, I guess they probably were a noticeable upgrade, which is why they were somewhat worth the hype. But for someone to spend hundreds, if not even thousands, to change their headlights just to perceive a maybe 5 to 10% difference depending on what LEDs they had to begin with, because again, some might actually be better than the xenons, that's not really worth it to spend that much to see basically a difference that you may not actually see. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you had fun and you love automotive content, then make sure to subscribe and check out my other videos. I also make shorts, so make sure to give them a watch and like this video if you liked it. Share this video to your pet sea otter, and I'll see you next time. Bladed Angel out.